This is Amateur Logic, episode 146 for August 15th, 2020. This episode of Amateur Logic is brought to you by MFJ, the world leaders in ham radio accessories at mfjenterprises.com, and by ICOM. Get out and be active with the perfect QRP companion, ICOM's new IC705 and its optional multifunction backpack. Good evening and welcome to another action-packed episode of Amateur Logic. I'm George.
I'm Tommy.
I'm Emile.
And I'm Mike.
Great to be back with you again. We've got a fun show lined up tonight, and we've got a special announcement coming up a little later. I know no one will guess, so we won't talk about the, 800-pound gorilla in the room? Actually, it's not even 8 pounds.
Yeah. Mike, you have to point down. I can't.
No, we will just briefly mention that we're coming up on 15 years here at Amateur Logic. In October, we'll be celebrating 15 years. And, you know, we'd kind of like to do a contest each year in October. And we've got a contest coming up just for you folks. I'm not going to tell you what we're giving away yet. I'm sure
Stay tuned. It's going to be huge. Well, not huge.
Well, no, great. Not huge. Yep. Anyway, we'll be back to talk about that in a minute. But right now, over in the chat room, they're all talking about us. And, well, actually, they're talking
about nostalgia.
Yeah, Betamax. We mentioned dubbing VHS tapes right before the show tonight and got a whole thread started up over there. It's kind of caught my interest now. Y'all carry on without me for a little bit, but wow.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Laserdisc, Betamax, RCA video disc.
That just kind of proves the point about what we normally say. If you're watching the live stream and you're not in the chat room at AmateurLogic.TV /chat, you're missing half the fun.
And the question is,
which half?
Which half?
Man, that's a hard one.
Yep.
Pretty hard to tell.
I don't think it's been answered yet. Well,
different for everybody.
What has everyone been up to this past month? Wow, it has been hot here in Mississippi, I'll say that.
Yeah, it's been hot over here in my part of Mississippi, too. Since I'm just right up the road from you.
Yep.
Been piddling around with some projects around the house. I actually did a project for my segment this month, so kind of looking forward to showing that and see what you guys think about it. Got another one on the hook I'm going to be doing here pretty soon.
Cool. Yeah, we've done a few projects here as well. None that I have video for tonight. A lot of it's been out at transmitter sites, and I've got a lot more I've got to do at some transmitters next week if the weather will cooperate. Just down the river there, though, a little bit. Emile, it has not been hot in Louisiana, has it?
No, not hot. Not hot at all. It's hot and humid. It's crazy hot and humid, and for us, it's been raining and scattered thunderstorms every day this week. And there's been a little bit of, all that time inside has caused some pie sprawl. So I took out my genuine engineering stick from the VE3 MIC and engineered me some monitoring solutions that you'll see a little bit later for my pie sprawl issue.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of fun. Well, Mike, I know no humidity in Canada. Well, I guess not. What have you been up to?
It's been one of the most humid summers I think we've had, and at least for what I can remember. And I couldn't help notice in the title sequence it said hot August night, and I thought, yeah, it is a hot August night even up here. It's been in the 80s. It'll dip down to the, I guess, high 60s at night, but it's back up into the 80s, and we've had some that, were mid 90s, and you add humidity to that, it's I don't know, probably 98 humidex when you factor that in.
Let's get on into the show because we've got a good bit to cover tonight. First up, Emile. I know you don't have an email, but you do have something for us tonight. What is that?
I have a Facebook post from the Facebook forum, that AmateurLogic.TV, from one of maybe all of our seniors, Mike Golden, in the Facebook forum, wrote to us, said he's been an amateur since he was 15 in 1958, and he knows a thing or two and has seen a thing or two. After holding
a thing or two?
Yeah. After holding a general class license for most of these years, I recently upgraded to extra class. Now, while I'm still young enough to learn something about digital voice, I have a brand new toy. He bought a Shark RF OpenSpot 3. He said, I chose that particular hotspot mainly for its capability to convert between the digital modes, between Fusions, DMR, D-Star, and he'll be talking through it on his HT. So as he says, as much as he searched, he can't find information locating really signals out there or where to go. And I figured I would try to help him out as best I can here. In the open spots, as we all know, some of these hotspots we use have proprietary interfaces. OpenSpot has its own OS kind of thing, and it's not like a Pi-Star load, or it is, but it's got its own nuances, just like they all do. So I went and tracked down the OpenSpot's user manual and found exactly where they tell you on each radio how to set it up for that mode. And then there's also the instructions on how to cross to the other side. And one of his issues was really saying, how do I find where this stuff is? So there you see the X button. So each mode has its own location, like D-Star info, for instance, on the internet will tell you where the reflectors are, what they're for, and you can browse them just like you're turning that VFO, right? Changing reflectors. And so between his open spots, the Sharks instructions, and these sites, you can really get a sense of where to go. There's the YSF reflector lists from Pi-Star. There's also another DMR one here that I didn't show, but there's one for the Brandmeister set up in DMR. So there you go. Hopefully you can find your way around and browse, because there's a lot of stuff out there. Some of them are pretty active. You just got to know how to get there with your particular hotspot, right?
I just got one little thing to add to that. I had the same issue when I first got involved with some of the digital modes, and yeah, he's right. There's not a lot of information. At least it's not in one place. But I did find that by following along with the last heard lists on the various sites, those will show you the most active talk groups. And I just basically made note of the active talk groups and added them as I wanted to on my OpenSpot. I have the original OpenSpot. I'm sure it's similar. And the nice thing about the OpenSpot, it can be kind of daunting in terms of the setup, but at least it allows you to create profiles. So I have a separate profile for D-Star, separate profile for DMR on Brandmeister, another one for DMR on TGIF, and then when I want to switch over, all I have to do is pull down the drop-down list and select the appropriate profile, and away I go. I don't have to worry about changing individual settings each time. But I'm sure the OpenSpot 3 is very similar.
Tommy, I've been experimenting with the Dremel tool again. Not dentistry this time.
I used my Dremel tool more last month than I did the whole time I've owned it. I've got a different type project for you this month. I did a little bit of woodworking. A lot of people have these lit signs at their stations and their shacks, and I didn't have one. I wanted to get one, and it's actually one of the things I was planning on doing at Dayton this year, but since Dayton was canceled, I decided to try my hand at making my own. Let's take a look at what I did. I went to Lowe's and I got a piece of Lexan plastic, like plexiglass, and I decided to etch my call sign in it. I had to make a template, so I used the font that we use for our Amateur Logic logo. I thought that would be good. I took Paint, the free program that comes with Windows 10. I typed in my call sign using that font. I had to change the rulers over to use inches for measurements and know what size I needed my logo to be. I just resized it to match. Then selected the text, flipped it horizontal, and then printed it out. That way when I use it as a stencil, it'll go to the back of the plexiglass, and when I turn it around, it'll read properly. I've got a little piece of oak scrap that I had from a different project. I had to use my table saw and cut this piece of wood down. Now you don't have to have a table saw to do this. You can use a hand saw and then sand it down. You don't really need the power tools that I had to do the same job. So if you're creative and you've got a little cheap hand miter saw or something like that, you can do the same thing. So it took me a little while to do that. I sanded it down really good on the corners so it didn't have a square look, and sanded the blade marks out of the wood. I like the natural look of the oak, so I just put a tung oil finish on it, and that's some tung oil I've had sitting around here, but you can get it at Lowe's as well. And just put a couple of coats on there, buff it in between each coat, and it's good to go. I had to cut my plexiglass out to fit my sign base, keeping in mind the size of the lettering I made on my template, so it'll all fit nice and neat with the right amount around the edges and everything. I found the little knife at Lowe's that you can cut plexiglass with. Be sure to use a good straight edge and make sure everything's square, but if you score it several times, you can get it deep enough that you can pop it and you don't have to worry about using a saw and taking a chance on scratching your plexiglass up. I taped the stencil that we made, or the template that we made, to the plexiglass so that after I take the X-Acto knife and cut it out, I can use that as my stencil for my etching, and the lettering will be in the right orientation. Next is the hard part. I use my Dremel tool and a variety of grinding bits to etch the back of the glass, using a lot of care not to tear up that plastic or the stencil so that your lines are straight. I did get a little small metal ruler and use it as a guide to make sure that my straight edges were still straight when I was doing it. It's very important to get it as even as possible or it'll show up in the light. Mine's not perfect, and I'd like a better method to do this and redo my plexiglass, but it works and it looks pretty good, but I think it could still be just a little bit better. I did sand the ends of the plexiglass because after I scored them and popped them, there were some sharp edges on there, so I just rubbed the edges on a piece of sandpaper a little bit to knock those down. To make the channel in the bottom of the base, I use these Dremel bits. I picked these up at Lowe's as well for like $10 for the two, and it made it pretty easy. I did make one mistake. I wish I would have cut it with a little bit of an angle so it would lean slightly back. It's instead of being exactly 90 degrees. I drilled some holes for the LEDs, and what I did was I kind of eyeballed it. I put the sign in, and I looked down below, drilled the holes out that matched kind of the center of the letters, since this is the AmateurLogic font that we use for our logo. So I drilled the holes in the center for the LED bulbs. Now I could have got LED strips and used it, but power, every one of them I found was a 12-volt power source, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I've got just plain old LEDs, 2.1 volts and 20 milliamps is the draw on them. So anyway, I found those, and I drilled the holes out for them to fit. So they should slip right down into the hole that I drilled out, like so. And I'm going to run a wire here for the negative, one for the positive, and then I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue to hold the LEDs in. Now for my power source, I told you I was going to use 5 volts. So I got this old iPhone cord. I cut the end off, put a little piece of heat shrink on it, and I used my voltmeter with this plugged into the USB battery to test and see where I got my 5 volts and my negative. So those are the only 2 wires that I left exposed. And then I found my resistor. I did the calculation right here on the screen, and I come out with a 150 ohm resistor. Now originally I was going to put one large resistor and then just tie them all together with one power rail, one negative rail. Because of the current draw, I was going to probably need a 1/2 watt resistor. So it was easier just to do these. I already have them. So I'm going to solder these onto the anode of the LED, and then I'll tie the negative in. This is where I was just breadboarding it just to check it and make sure everything worked okay. So now I've got my power. I drilled a hole into the side to run my power line through and to fish them out. And I'll take a little hot glue when I'm done and just keep everything in place. So let's go ahead and put it together. What I'm going to do is cut 2 pieces of this copper wire I've got just to lay across here to hook my power on. First thing I'm going to do is solder these resistors onto my LED. That's all 5. So let's see how we can make those fit. I'm going to put the power first. I'll put the ground on the high side over here, which would be basically the front. So I'll do like so. It's probably not going to be the prettiest job. Let's go ahead and cut the wire for one of them at least. And this is pretty heavy wire. So the ground one is the one I've got the clear shielding on, or the negative. So that's the one that I will solder first to here. Let's cut one more for the other side. I know the hot glue is really ugly and I don't like it, but that's kind of how it is. Okay, it's all working. Well, it came out pretty good. I hope you found the segment interesting and maybe you try it yourself. It was pretty cheap. I think all in all I've paid about maybe $6 or so for the piece of plexiglass, and the piece of wood I already had And matter of fact, the 5 LEDs I already had. If I had to do it again, what would I do? I would probably space these out evenly, and then I would probably build this little, measure this out and build this little wiring harness here where I can, and put flexible wire on it where I can just drop them in the holes. Hope it's interesting to you, and we'll see you next time. 73.
Whole lot of dremeling going on.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And a whole lot of hot gluing. I didn't intend on putting that much hot glue on it. And like I said, if I was going to do it different, I would have spaced the holes out evenly. I thought I was doing it the right way, and I may go revisit it and remake it later. I want a better way to etch the back of the plexiglass instead of using that Dremel. That was pretty tough doing that, but it worked.
Yeah, it looked really good.
I was really curious to see how you're going to do that. We were talking a little bit off camera, and I've got this little world clock here with a flat picture of the world, and I thought of replacing it with my call sign, because when you press down on the base, or there's a switch on the side, you can turn it on so it's illuminated full time, and it's got some kind of multicolor LEDs, and mine are lit from the corners. So, but yours really illuminates the outside perimeter of that plexiglass, which is really cool. I don't think this one does that.
Yeah, I looked for some thicker plexiglass, but it's kind of hard to find.
It's really hard to find.
Yeah,
I could only find those small handy panels at the big box stores like you did.
Yeah, that's all I could come up with. But it was a fun project. And I like it. Like I said, I could do things a little bit better on it next time if I were going to make another one. But I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, this one was made by Jim's Engraving, and he's no longer in business. But that is a mirror. That's about a 1/4 inch thick there, and this is the back side of it. The first ones he did, I think he had a laser engraver that he used. He did it on the shiny side, and you could read it and they worked fine, but then he started doing it on the back because it just pops out better like that. But yeah, I could imagine if I was trying to do that with a Dremel tool, man, mine would have just a big line all the way through it or something where it got away from
and see, I wanted to use a little sandblaster. You can get a little project sandblaster, and I think that would have made a nice even looking etching on the back. But then my air compressor is not really big enough to support it, and I wouldn't have got to use the Cheap Ham certified logo, which was very important to stay within the guidelines of that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Tommy. I need to my ICOM writing pad here to track some of these costs here.
For a minute there, I thought Emile was going to say we owed him for using the cost compliancy certification. I thought he was charging a fee for that.
No, there's no cost for that. No. That's free too.
Wow. Okay. Well, speaking of projects, we've got one right here. Comes from our friend who I think I saw him there he is. He's in the chat room tonight. OH7T Timay. Now, you might not know what that is at first, but he's saying thanks for last night's ALTV. Just looking a bit postponed. I like to share with you my survival kit, which travels with me in the car. And this is the world premiere. But inside of it, you pull the cover off, and that's where it starts getting interesting in there. He's got things that a fellow might need when he's traveling. I see a set of sockets in there. There is some screwdriver bits as well, a flashlight, a tripod. I guess that's to hold the flashlight. I'm not sure. I know Tommy would carry a tripod with him everywhere he goes. I see a meter in there, a folding ruler, crescent wrench, screwdrivers. So, yeah, a lot of good items. And a soldering iron.
He's in the chat room. He says it's an anti-static cover.
Okay.
Oh, that's what the snap connector is for, I bet.
He's prepared there. If an emergency comes up and he needs to work on something, he's got it covered.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, Tomei. You need to carry some tools with you. It's always a good idea. I carry some in both my vehicles because usually when I go somewhere, somebody's expecting me to fix something. So if you find yourself in a similar situation, you might want to follow Tomei's lead there and put yourself together a kit. That's pretty nice.
It's pretty nice. It looks small enough to slide under your front seat of your car.
Well, exactly, yeah.
He's managed to pack a lot of stuff in that little container.
Maybe we ought to get a message from MFJ and then come right back.
Let's do that.
The MFJ 1928EX is a heavy-duty portable antenna stand that extends to 6 feet and collapses to only 38 inches for easy transportation. This black stainless steel stand will hold up to 66 pounds of antenna steady and comes with a fiberglass telescoping pole and military-grade quick clamps for quick setup. The MFJ 2286 Big Stick is a portable monopole featuring MFJ's rugged stainless steel collapsible whip paired with an adjustable high-Q air-wound coil. Efficiency matters, so it's not surprising this winning combination stands head and shoulders above shorter backpack antennas. The antenna is constructed of all aluminum and stainless steel components for years of great performance, and it's rated at 1 kilowatt. While it extends to a full 17 feet, the 2-pound monopole collapses to just 28 inches in seconds. Adjusting the length of the antenna and the high Q coil makes tuning a breeze anywhere from 7 to 55 megahertz. For the lower bands, a counterpoise wire assembly is included. Big Stick is for the ham radio operator on the move and on the go and hungry for the next great QSO anywhere, anytime. The MFJ 2289 Big Ears use the same high Q coil and 2 of the rugged collapsible monopoles. Efficiency is the key to launching a big signal in remote areas, and Big Ear does it so well you might forget you left home. The secret is MFJ's incredibly strong and weather-resistant stainless steel telescopic whips stretching to a whopping 34-foot span, twice the length of other portable antennas. The antenna includes a robust 45-degree center mounting block with a built-in balun, and it's good for up to 1 kilowatt. There's no counterpoise required for full 7 to 55 megahertz operation. If you need a quick setup, rugged, high-performance portable HF antenna, you can't beat the MFJ Big Stick or Big Ear. Available at mfjenterprises.com or wherever amateur radio products are sold. And that is a nice antenna setup. You have that, don't you, Tommy?
Oh, yeah, I do. I love mine.
Yeah, and you know, I'm feeling kind of generous. Well, I'll talk with you a little bit later and see how somebody might get one of those that meets the cost-compliant guidelines.
Okay, that sounds good.
Email's keeping notes there, so
I'm looking forward to finding out about that myself.
That's all for the demo sketch, but I wanted to show you how you set up the Arduino Integrated Development Environment, or IDE as it's commonly referred to. The IDE is basically an editor with library files management. You'll need an IDE app to write sketches and upload, or is that download? Well, you'll see what I mean shortly, but let's get the IDE software and install it. Open a web browser and go to https://arduino.cc. Now click on the software tab and select downloads. There is a web editor, but I'm going to download and install the app version. Choose the appropriate link for your operating system. Like to make a donation, click the Contribute and Download button, or just download, which is probably what most of us hams would do. The download may take some time, so grab a coffee or a nap. Once the download has completed, click on the Arduino.exe file to start the install. Is complete, you're ready to connect the USB cable from the beginner kit to your computer. Go ahead and launch the Arduino IDE. Remember that the Cedino Lotus board in the beginner kit is compatible with the Arduino Uno, so just check to see that the IDE is set to the correct board type as shown. Well, that's all for now. Have fun, and don't forget, I put together a small guidebook which can be found in the AmateurLogic.TV wiki.
Nice, Mike. You know, when you showed us that thing last time from the, I believe it was an overhead camera there.
Yes.
I thought it was cardboard, and now I see it's actually PC boards.
Well, it's both. It's a PC board in a cardboard box.
Oh, okay. Tommy, you've been doing a little playing with that IC 9700 recently, and stumbled across something pretty neat, didn't you?
I did. I actually did a video that's over on the ICOM America YouTube page. There was a post on there asking if you could use a hotspot to send and receive pictures like that, and you can. And well, there was a response to that from Kent Hufford that I was going to read that I thought was pretty interesting. I wasn't aware of it. It says on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time, there's a D-Star picture net on Reflector 72D, and 55D is the backup. The RSMS1A Android app that you can get in the Google Play Store works with the ID31 and 51A Plus radios, or the 51A Plus 2. The ID4100, the 5100, and 7100s need the OPC 2350LU data cable. Anyway, you can use those to send pictures back and forth. It says the 9700 users are welcome to join as well. They can exchange pictures, text messages, and positional information. Well, they have a net. And I came in the middle of it. As you can see, it was receiving a picture from somebody. But it's kind of interesting. They'll just set it up and they'll send a picture, and then everybody gives a signal report if they received it, if they're missing blocks. You can see there was one missing block down there at the bottom left on this one. But it was kind of interesting. If you're a D-Star user, you ought to check it out. And you can find some more information over on, like I said, on the ICOM America YouTube page where my video is. You can see the post down below about it.
This time I needed something to take care of Pi Sprawl, which is, now that I'm up to 6 with the latest Pi 4 edition of these Pis doing dedicated jobs around the house. I needed something so that I could monitor the Pis, tell me when they need to be patched, and see what kind of health they're doing hardware-wise, make sure they're still working. And so that's what I found out here. Hey George, Tommy, Mike, AmateurLogic.TV viewers. Finally got the Raspberry Pi 4. It's the 4 meg edition from CanaKit, the fan, and the heat sinks, and I put it to work in the cheap old man monitoring system. So you might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with radio, and what is it for? What am I going to use it for? And that answer is for use with my Shack Pi monitor project that I previewed on Facebook a bit ago, where I have a Pi dedicated to monitoring a whole bunch of statistics and other sites external to the KE5QKR Shack, but to be used in the Shack, which basically cycles through several web pages and other informations that are out there, looking for weather information, hurricane center information, all sorts of things, including the monitoring of my own Pis, via this RPi monitoring system. There's several Pis all throughout my shack and areas performing certain functions for me. And one of the Pis here in the shack taking a look at some things for me. And of course, one of my original systems, the Pi, that is one of my web servers, providing most of the information from my systems. So I needed a good way to monitor my Raspberry Pis and the services that they have running. And I think I found one in this software here. I was browsing the internet and came across a program called RPi Monitor, which has its own GitHub repository. And the software itself is pretty simple to set up with very good documentation, as well as just getting you right into it as soon as you do install it. Like I said, documentation is written very well. There's an entire website just dedicated to that with examples, its features, how to configure it. It is good if you do have some Linux experience as far as setting up jobs and some scripts or editing text files. In my case, I was using the Nano, and they tell you exactly where to do that. And they have a great getting started section and take you into some brief discussions about how to go ahead and install it and get it going. And with that, it's pretty straightforward to do so. The installation from their repository is very straightforward. It's simply a matter of adding one of their repositories, as well as getting it from there. And then literally once you've done that and it installs, you're browsing to your address, the Pi's address on your network on port 8888, which is the defaults. So with that said, I'll go ahead and show you what I've done already in a brief period, maybe total of an hour of setup here. And that's including me editing some files and making some custom things that I wanted to see. So this is running on one of my Pis on my internal network, the ComPi 4, which is what I showed you earlier. Shows you the version, the processors, distribution that's running. It's running Buster because it's a brand new Pi 4 gig. The kernel, the firmware, and you can see here 0 upgradables. When I first installed it, it told me basically I had 110 things. So it checks to see if there are any updates for your Pi on a schedule. So that's one of the things that's built in by default, which I thought was nice. The server's uptime, along with its time, and the CPU load, which you can see this thing's been running for quite a bit, and there's hardly any load happening on the actual Pi 4, and it'll show you the top 3. Now that's one of the customizations I did. He gives you examples of how to customize add-ons and other things, and this is one of them. How to add this top 3 processes that are running. And you can see in my case, it's the actual desktop in the VNC server, which is I am connected to the Pi via VNC, which makes sense. That's what's taking most of the process time rather than the actual software, which I thought was good. So it looks like be efficiently written code. The temperatures of the CPU, the memory utilization, swap file utilization, the SD card capacities. I also did a customization on mine because I don't have it plugged in to a wired interface, and that's what it defaulted to. So I plugged it into, I made it show the Wi-Fi WLAN 0 interface and its traffic, and some services here. I need to go and configure the storage. I think I just added that service and didn't configure it, but some services here. Like for instance, it's monitoring to see if SSH is running. Well, I know I didn't turn on SSH, so I'm glad it's not running. In fact, this will show me if it is. So it's kind of a monitor for things. You can configure whatever you want it to look at. I do have it looking at the RPi monitor service on port 8888 itself. And of course, there's an Nginx server running, I guess, embedded with this, and it's not listening on port 80. That's what this is telling me. So not only does it do this real-time dashboard here, but it also will collect some statistics over time and allow you to go back and look at some of these options and some of the data it's collected over time. It's only been running for a bit for me, so it's not much data there, but it's doing it. Send, receive, all sorts of things. Again, totally configurable with add-ons that you can customize. They even give you the examples to use and figure out on your own, like the uptime. So you can create your own even. Good stuff. You can set your own options. In my case here, the main options are on this page to have it reload or auto refresh this page, and I use my other Pi for that to monitor this one. You can also monitor other Pis, or I think what the way they call it in their software is through friends, or you can basically point it to other Pis running this, and it'll kind of queue them up on this dashboard, for which you can have, if I'm not mistaken, multiple status pages as well. So lots of things in here, and this is built in. It just took very little time to get it working, and I wanted to see how my Raspberry Pi was doing things, and this was the way I got it going. So great software and documentation from, well, I hope I don't butcher this, Xavier Berger on GitHub. So take a look at it. It's RPi monitor. Good stuff. There are several configuration files to deal with when you're using RPi monitor. One of them, the main one, is the data.conf to configure what it's displaying, what it's capturing, etc. And the other is the templates that are used for each module, if you will, or things that you want to capture information about. And he gives excellent examples in here. All you got to do really is edit the ones that he already has in the templates directory and go from there, set it up how you want to, and customize it for what you need. So it's a very good system that's distributed in somewhat the normal method of good Unix, Linux written applications. All the files are in the places you would expect them to be in for a well-written app.
You know, we've got 15th anniversary coming up in October. And it seems like it's only a year ago we were celebrating the 14th.
I know, it seems like that, don't it? I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and I think we gave away a radio on that episode.
Yeah, maybe we ought to do the same thing this time.
Well, I think so. You know, and last time the radio was back ordered and they were out of stock while we were kind of promoting up to the contest coming on. So we had a cardboard mock-up here. And I'm going to have to admit, yes.
Kind of like deja vu.
All over again. The radio is so new that, you know, they're not really shipping in the U.S., or at least not U.S. versions of them yet. But they're going to be shipping Well, I think they're coming in the end of September, sometime around then. They'll be shipping, and I know we'll have one for October because we're going to give it away. And no, not the cheap cardboard box model here. Let's have a contest. What do you say?
Cool. 15 years. Woohoo!
That's unbelievable. It seems like only yesterday it was like the 5th or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
I remember when we did the first show out there at the Wi-Fi site out there in the woods, wondering if we'd do a second one.
Yep. And the wind was blowing in the background.
Like there was a hurricane in there.
And there was.
Just before Katrina.
Just before Katrina. And I had been in New Orleans like the day before. I was down there on a job and came back.
Wow.
And shot this thing with Jimmy, and the winds were starting to come in, and wow, it was a month before we ever posted it because, well, things got kind of hairy there for a while, as I'm sure Emile will attest.
Yeah, well, when you said that, it made me think of the ponytail. So yeah, things were hairier back then.
Well, they were. They were. We've got some good prizes to give away here. Of course, the center item is going to be the ICOM IC705 transceiver from ICOM. That's the new QRP transceiver. You've heard a lot about it in the last few months, and we've done videos on it a couple of times here. We used it in the park just recently. Ray came over, and we had a good time playing with it. And I got to say, man, it's like a mini 7300, except it's got VHF and UHF and D-Star in it, too. Really nice rig if you're wanting something portable. It's just got everything. I don't know what else to say about it. And they've got a nice little backpack that goes with it as well. Well, these are all the prizes we're going to give away. You can see them right there on the screen. But let's just zoom in on a little bit closer. There's the rig. QRP, man. Hard to believe.
Yeah, it don't look like cardboard.
No, that one's not.
If you can work the 7300, you work this one just fine. It basically works almost identical.
Except this one's got VHF and UHF and GPS and D-Star built in it.
Right.
So
Is it all mode up there too, George?
yes.
Awesome.
There's a nice multifunction backpack that will be given away as part of this prize package as well. The radio just fits in the top of the backpack, and then you've got all that other space in there for antennas or whatever else that you would like to carry with you, some spare batteries. It uses the same battery as your ICOM Handy Talkie.
It's a ID 51 and 31.
But you're going to need an antenna as well. And for that, what have we got, Tommy?
We've got the MFJ 2289 PKG, the bigger antenna from MFJ. We're also got the 1918 EX tripod and the 6204 carrying bag for it.
Yeah,
and that's the same antenna you've seen me use many field days in the past. And I really like it a lot. It folds down pretty compact, and it's easy to carry. It's a good match for that QRP rig.
Yeah, the MFJ 2289 PKG, that's the package. That includes all those items right there, the carrying case, the antenna, the tripod, everything you need. And, of course, we're going to throw in some RG8X coax from MFJ as well. You may want a power supply, although normally you'd run this off a battery, and using the battery you get 5 watts out. If you use a power supply, you get 10 watts out, and you're probably going to want that battery to be charged as well. We've got the MFJ 4115 portable 12-volt power supply. It's a real small power supply there, 15 amps, perfect for powering the IC705 with. You might want to go hands-free, and it might be in a noisy location, so you may prefer a headset. What do you think about a Heil BM17?
That's a nice little headset. It's lightweight, and it felt very comfortable. Tried it on.
Yeah.
So you can't go too wrong with that. It's a good addition to the rig.
And it'll fold right up and fit in that backpack as well.
Absolutely.
A great prize package here, I think. So how would you win this?
The first qualification is you must be a licensed U.S. or Canadian amateur radio operator with a U.S. or Canadian shipping address.
And there's only one entry per contestant. Sending more than one entry will disqualify the applicant.
Yeah, so please don't send more than one. If you don't, you should get a confirmation email that you sent it. If you don't get it, let one of us know and we'll look into it for you and see if it actually made it before you send a second. Okay, the other thing is the winner is responsible for any taxes incurred.
Yeah. Fourth,
which I don't think there are any, but
yeah. The winner agrees to the use of his or her call sign and name and promotional and news items related to the contest. And, we've given away things a number of times here, and all that means is we're going to post that, hey, you're the lucky winner. So.
And this last one here, we should have talked about this one before we came up with this rule. But the contestants must not be an employee or affiliate of AmateurLogic, ICOM, MFJ Enterprises, Heil Sound. So I got a little problem with that one.
Yeah, I thought you might. But that's just the way it rolls, man. We're not eligible, so we make it fair for everyone else. How could you enter? Well,
it's pretty easy, really. Send an email to contest2020@AmateurLogic.TV with only your call sign in the subject line. Include your name, call sign, class of license, and your address in the email message.
Yeah, and you'll be able to get all this information by visiting AmateurLogic.TV/contest. Submissions must be made between Friday, August the 14th, and Monday, October the 12th of 2020.
The contest winner is going to be selected by a random number from the entries received. The winner will be announced on the October 16th episode of AmateurLogic.TV.
And if it's determined that the winning entry does not meet the qualification requirements, another winner will be chosen by the same method. You can get all the contest rules and information at AmateurLogic.TV/contest. Only enter once. If you enter more than one time, you're going to be disqualified. So don't do that. It's been a fun show tonight. It's been a long show tonight, but not unheard of in these parts.
That's true. Had a few bumps in the road for Arnie's viewing pleasure, but nothing too major.
Yep. Yeah,
it's good to see people contributing, George. It's good to see people like Terry's segment. I thought that was awesome.
That was.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I appreciate you sending that in, Terry. That was great.
Yeah, very
that has
much
a lot of different configurations that I wouldn't have even thought possible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very versatile. I may look at getting one of those too. It was the nice thing about it. It came in a nice little case. I guess you saw it had little pouches for each one of them, nice and neat. Everything goes in its spot.
Yep. Well, I guess before we get out of here, we'll go around one time and see what everyone's got lined up and what's going to be going on until the next time we're back here. Tommy?
I don't have a whole lot planned. Another little project I've been working on, and then I'm going to try to do checking on Mike's Lighthouses on the Air event. I think I'm going to see about getting get my name on some logs there.
Yeah, that sounds
one thing
like
I should
fun.
mention, I guess there's a little bit of following where folks try to work as many lighthouses as possible. And this is kind of a common thing that I really wasn't aware of at the time. But lighthouse activations and working lighthouses are kind of like having your own little VX pileup. So if you're at a lighthouse and you announce that you're at a lighthouse, you'll have all kinds of stations calling you.
Well, Emile, what have you got coming up here?
Well, what I got coming up, I took Tommy's advice on the N5 BOC duplex board. I think that was your advice, right, Tommy?
Yes.
I got it, set it up, took me a half an hour. Awesome device. And George, I think I'm going to try to see all the things that makes duplex special and any other features, maybe some admin tools on that Pi Star image that comes with it. So great device, and that's what I'm going to be up to.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a great device.
Yeah, it certainly is. I am very proud of that purchase. It's worked better than any hotspot I've ever used before. Not that I've used a whole lot of them, but boy, this one's really nice. Mike, what's going on up there? I know it's still a little warm for antenna work.
Yeah, actually, the air conditioner just turned off. It's still running this time of night. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much about it, but I've acquired this little device, and I'm going to mention it just because it'll kind of commit myself to do it. I'm going to show you how you can take one of these and use it as a full-featured spectrum analyzer.
Cool.
Oh,
It's an
looking
SDR.
forward to that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds like a fun project. Well, we appreciate everyone being with us this time around, and we'll be back around the middle of next month with another show. You can join us, Professor Thomas and Dean Morton, at the end of the month for the next Ham College. And don't forget to go to AmateurLogic.TV/contest. Check out the details on this great 15th anniversary sweepstakes we've got coming up. Find out how you can enter. Any final words, guys?
Keep it cheap.
No. Sorry.
Okay.
What did you say? Keep it cheap.
The only other comment I have is if we've got any folks that have acquired one of these, if you're doing anything interesting with it, drop us an email and maybe a picture or two so we can show it off on one of the segments.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, actually, I got one more thing too. The ID51 was replaced, and somebody in the chat room actually mentioned it. I can't believe it didn't mention it, but Icon released the information on the ID52. So go check out a press release out about that. It looks pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Color screen this time.
Well, 7-3, everybody. Join us again next month. Until then, try to stay cool.
Yeah. 7-3, everybody.
7-3.
7-3.
I don't think we'll be winifying that. Winifying. I just made a new word.
Winify?
Yeah.
That's a good one.